This is the plaintiff, Lawrence Dellicker. He says he rented an apartment from the defendant, and she would shut the furnace off to save money, forget to turn it back on, and there'd never be any hot water for him to take a shower. He ended up calling the town on her, moved out, and now she won't return the security deposit he gave her when he moved in. So he's suing for the $1,400 he's owed. This is the defendant, Dawn Hunt. She says the plaintiff was one of the worst tenants she's ever had, and she's so happy to be rid of him. The guy called the town on her because she ran out of oil one day by accident. He didn't pay rent the last month he was there, and she surely doesn't owe this guy a penny. She's accused of lousy landlording.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket, the plaintiff rented an apartment from the defendant and says the defendant actually turned the furnace off because she was cheap. But the defendant says the plaintiff was a nightmare. It's the case of the heat is on.
Okay, thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Lawrence Dellicker, you are suing your former landlord, Dawn Hunt, for $1,400, double your security deposit because according to you, she wrongfully withheld it. You are holding it because, according to you, he didn't pay November rent and was there the first days of November. Tell me what's going on.
Well, what's going on, Your Honor, is I moved in October of 2012, and the heat was on all winter, so hence the hot water was on all winter, so I had no idea that my landlord would be making adjustments in the hot water later in the summer when the heat was off. She had a tenant that was living upstairs, and she told me that he was turning on the heat late in April, and she didn't like it, so she shut the heat off on him at night, and then she'd forget to turn it back on in the morning. So my cold shower started April or May, around that type
Because
of year.
the heat in the apartment is linked to the hot water?
That's correct, Your Honor.
So then what was she doing?
She would shut off the furnace so
Right.
that the hot water wouldn't heat.
Okay.
Because the furnace heated the hot water. She'd shut off the furnace in retaliation against him, and I'd end up not getting a hot shower. Well, after he vacated, she'd continue to play that game with the furnace and forget to turn the hot water back on.
What were you doing that for? In order to save money?
To economize.
But don't you spend more money heating that same water over and over that doesn't get...
Not with the water heater I have. It's a huge water heater, and usually it would last for a day and a half.
Yeah, but the guy's entitled to have a hot shower without consulting you on the time.
I
So why were
apologize to him many times. I totally agree.
Yeah, but you did it for how long?
Through the summer.
Okay. You can't do that.
I know that now.
Well, but you should have known it then. Like, what would make you think that the man who's paying rent is going to agree to pay the same rent but have to check with you before a hot shower?
No, I didn't think that. I
you kind of did.
I tried to turn it on for him before he came home from work all the time. Sometimes I forgot. It got away from me.
Then sometimes he had the nerve to come home from work at different times.
He did.
It's terrible. That's not up to you. All right. So then you end up, she says, oh, I apologize. But in reality, you brought it to her attention multiple times.
Multiple times, Your Honor. When I paid my rent in August, I told her that the next time it happened, I wouldn't be calling her. I would be calling the town because she'd be violating the regulations, the housing regulations. I ended up having to call the town.
Okay.
In September, over 3 or 4 days, I wasn't getting hot water for showers towards the 21st, 24th, 25th of September. So I called the town, and the housing code enforcement officer came out. He talked to the defendant, and he told me that he advised her. Well, I continued not to get hot water for showers after he came out. And so he ended up
So you called him again.
I called him again. He came out and he posted a notice on the front and the back doors of all the units on the property. If I could present that.
How many units are there on the property?
There's
Just the
3.
two? 3?
There's 3. And he gave her a letter.
Notice, this dwelling unit has not been certified as meeting minimum code requirements. Its use and occupancy is prohibited. Okay. What'd you do? Get mad at him for calling the city?
No, I just told him that his lease was up in December, and I kind of hinted I'd like him to leave. We weren't getting along, obviously.
Okay.
At the end of his lease.
All right.
And,
when did you leave?
I left on November 2nd, which was a Saturday.
Did you pay October?
I indicated that she should take the last month rent that
Because at the beginning of the tenancy, you paid first, last, and security?
That's correct. So I said, take the last month.
So that paid for October, but
Correct.
why'd you leave November 2nd?
Because that was the weekend. I couldn't lose any time from work. She forced me to have to leave the premises because she couldn't provide it in a habitable condition. The town was telling me I shouldn't be occupying
When did these
it.
notices get posted?
They got posted around the 15th to the 18th of October.
Is that accurate on the date that, does anybody have the letter from the city that says when they got posted?
I have a letter dated October 1st, which notified her of the violations.
Right, so we know it was after that. What date,
Right.
do you have anything from the county or city telling you?
I do, but then they dropped it. I haven't heard anything from
No,
them
but do you
since.
have the paperwork? The paperwork still
I
exists.
didn't bring it with me, no.
You didn't bring it with
I
you?
didn't
All
think
right,
it was-
so would it be accurate that it was mid-October?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sounds right.
So your premise is that you should be able to move on the weekend and not get out October 31st because what?
Well, Your Honor, she put me
In other
a-
words, I understand, but you paid for October.
I did.
And it's not a question of, hey, he broke his lease, because clearly you have a right to get out. The question is, do you have to pay for November, which typically you do when you go one day into November, you have to pay for November.
Understood, Your Honor, but when you don't have a habitable apartment, then the landlord...
Yeah, but you're not, okay, if it's not habitable, that's not why you had to stay a few days, because you couldn't live there. That doesn't make any sense. You stayed a few days because it was convenient, because it was a weekend.
But a landlord cannot collect rent on the premises with all the violations. This letter from the town indicates that.
When did the, that's a good point. When did the county drop everything? County, city, village, whatever it is you guys have, drop everything?
Right after he left.
No, I need to see proof of when they dropped everything.
Well, I don't have a letter or anything saying they did. I just haven't heard anything from them since.
Oh.
So can a landlord turn the heat off when the tenant is at work? Is that acceptable?
I think that the tenant owns the apartment full-time, so
The tenant's renting, but he does rent full-time. What do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because the tenant has a right to heat whenever.
But do you have a right to heat when you're not there?
Absolutely. Whether or not I am there, I pay the rent for the full time I'm there, so I should have whatever I want on.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Going inside the courtroom.
Show me what you've got, because there may still be something going on.
This is a letter from the town. He told me that she would not be allowed to re-rent it unless
Until
the
you get
proper
a certificate.
repairs
Oh,
were
wait, you
done.
don't even have a certificate of occupancy originally.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Oh, wait, okay. So you can't keep anything for rent if you aren't supposed to be collecting rent to begin with. You don't have a CO for the place.
Apparently.
Well,
I didn't
You
know
are
that.
the worst landlord. You have no knowledge of anything. You're adorable, but you have no knowledge of anything of what you're supposed to do.
Well,
Come
I'm
on.
out of work. I was renting an apartment in my home just to be able to survive.
Except for that, there's certain minimum standards that the city requires you to have, and for good reason, because otherwise you might do things like, oh, I don't know, making sure there's no hot water so you can save a few shekels. The whole thing is like crazy. All right. Now let us look at the double the security deposit law. Because unfortunately for you, you have one of those states that is really kind of pro-tenant, and they want you to do what you're supposed to do and cross every T and dot every I, or else. Did you notify her of a new address for you?
I did, Your Honor. I sent a regular mail letter with a return address on the envelope, and I also sent the same letter certified mail, and I have a copy, actually the original certified mail that I sent to her,
That she did not pick up, you mean?
which she did not pick up. It
Okay.
got returned to me.
I just want to see, do you actually in the letter tell her your new address, or you're saying
Yes, I
she
do.
should have deduced it from?
No. I just tell her about my new address.
Okay. Did you ever send a letter to him?
Yes, I did.
And you sent it to him when?
At the end of December.
So no matter what, you're past the 30 days.
Correct.
Well, oh, can I open your mail?
It's my... Oh, her mail.
I don't want to violate a federal law by accident while we're standing here with witnesses and everything. Yeah, it's actually a letter. Even this is the worst part. The guy's notifying you of what your responsibility is. By law, you must return my security within 30 days of receiving this letter. Please mail it to me at this address. And then what you did what with this? Just ignore him?
Well, I've had 3 from him, 2 on the door and that one, and I knew what it said, so I didn't bother going to pick it up. I knew what he was telling me.
My point is, he's even telling you, hey, heads up, law says X. What'd you do with that? Use it as a doily for your beer? I mean, what lady, you've got problems, and your problems stem from your own doing.
Yes,
You're not
indeed.
supposed to be renting the place, so you certainly can't keep the money for rent. You're supposed to be sending sending a notice within 30 days to the address that he clearly, you admit, notified you.
Which I had, and I
right,
did.
but you send it on the 24th, which is beyond his vacating the premises, as you well know. Do you send it to, what address did you send it to? Did you send it to the new address?
The address he gave me.
Oh, you did send it to the address he gave you? Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought you had also sent it to the old address. All right, but still, you kind of have my hands tied here. I mean, you're like the classic example of why it is that the state of Connecticut says, oh, well, if you mess with this, if you don't pay attention, if you're cavalier about it, you're going to pay double. So don't mess with it and pay attention. Mm-hmm. You're exactly the reason why they created the statute. $1,400 verdict for the plaintiff.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, let's meet up close and personal. The landlord, the judge, almost called the worst landlord ever.
Apparently.
You kind of take it all with a grain of salt here, it seems like.
Yes, I do.
It's a joke. It's not funny, though, if you're the tenant.
I guess it isn't. I'm just glad it's over with, that's all.
It's over. And so how did you like your career as a landlord?
I hate it, obviously. Thanks.
She couldn't get out of here fast enough.
I get that.
I wonder why.
Well, she has rules in her head, and that's the way she operates, regardless of whatever the rules are for her responsibilities to be a good landlord.
What was your thinking when you moved in there in the first place?
Well, I didn't do a psychological profile. I mean, she seemed nice enough at the beginning, and she was probably nice because she wanted a tenant because she needed the money.
Few cold showers?
Yeah, go down to the community center, take a shower. In the meantime, she turns the furnace on, it's heating up. It's no good to me when I need to leave.
Harvey?
There are certain things that are sacred in leases, and one of them is the landlord is responsible for providing heat, period. The landlord has to provide heat. If the landlord does not provide heat under the lease and refuses to do so, tenants under the law in every state, tenants are allowed to ultimately break the lease and get the unused portion of their security back.